Hello all, and welcome to a brand new Parry's Pickups. Thanks for joining us today. Today's going to be a Wii U special, because I've been concentrating on picking up a few Wii U games recently. So first off the bat, or the baseball bat shall I say, it is Wii Sports Club for the Wii U, of course. So, Wii Sports Club. Why did I want to pick this up? Because isn't this essentially just Wii Sports? Well, yes, it is sort of Wii Sports. It contains the same games the original free Wii Sports did. But it also has some extra cool things on there as well. Some training modes for each sport, which comprise of about 3 or 4 separate mini games for each one. The games also have had a nice lick of paint, of course, using the improved Wii U hardware. The game looks a little nicer than it did on Wii. Of course, all HD graphics and all. The new thing is you can now, as is illustrated here on the front of the box, play golf in a little bit of a different way, where you stand over your gamepad like this, and the Wii can recognise the motion and of the Wii remote, and you can see that on the screen of the gamepad. So yeah, I thought this was okay. A little awkward at first for me to get my head around it, but it actually works rather well. You just got to orientate that gamepad in the right direction towards your television. And it is an interesting twist on the formula. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth buying just for that, but it's cool nonetheless. Bowling was incredibly easy. I don't know if it's always been super easy. My instinct was to let go of B as I would let go of the ball, but on this it tells you to keep hold of B. I think there were 2 different play styles on the original Wii Sports. But yeah, I did incredibly well on the bowling. Has Wii Sports bowling always been so easy? It's always a fun game to play with friends. So I didn't try the baseball or the boxing because I never really liked playing them anyway. There is something... there is something new on the baseball apparently, where you can use the gamepad to pitch. So that's something I really need to try out. A curious thing when I put the game in is it couldn't update at all. You need to be able to update to play the game online. And this might be because the game is no longer supported online. Originally when this came out, I think you could download all the sports individually. You would download a pass to give you access to all 5 sports. I'd never quite liked the idea of that, so I was looking to get everything together on one disc. Unfortunately, this one's a little bit more expensive now. About £20 it's cost me for a second-hand game, and that's quite a lot when you consider that it is essentially Wii Sports. But this will be the go-to version of Wii Sports to play on the Wii U for me, and it is a game, I get a lot of mileage out of, when you have friends over. Wii Sports is always a classic fun one to play. The golf was a particular favourite among friends of mine. I always have issues with the golf. Not that good at it. I do prefer regular golf style controls, like Mario Golf sort of thing. But we always have a lot of fun playing it, and it's become a little bit of a joke that I groan every time it gets mentioned, but I'll play it every time it gets suggested, because it's just a tradition. And now I can do that tradition in HD on my Wii U. So that's Wii Sports Club. You may notice this is an Australian copy of the game. It's because it was cheaper than buying the UK version of Wii Sports Club. This plays fine on any PAL machine. The box is interesting because I don't know if this is all releases, but I think it's a later Wii release. The box isn't as solid. It's one of them weird recycled boxes. So maybe this was a thing in Australia, because I think another one of the games I've got actually has a box like this one. One of the little things has popped out there. But that doesn't matter. There we go. That's Wii Sports Club. Next up, another one of those boxes, Tokyo Mirage Settings FE, Australian version. Again, this time it doesn't have the strange recycling symbol, but it is a different lighter style box, if you're interested in that sort of thing. There's a download code that doesn't work. I've tried it already. And that's because this is an Australian version of the game. Rock the whole table then. Unfortunately, the codes don't work on the UK Wii Shop store. No, I can't get it to work anyway. But what's the game like is what you want to know. And you probably want to know why I bought another RPG, because for long-time watchers of Parry's Pickups, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan of RPGs. However, I am a fan of the Persona series, specifically Persona 4, which I've been playing quite a bit of recently, and really rather enjoying. This uses the Persona template, and the battle system from Persona is mostly carried over in its entirety to this game. So was really familiar to me, so made this game very accessible and enjoyable in that respect. In terms of the story, it's not quite as good as Persona 4, which is it's a shame. But I'm holding out that it's going to get a little bit more interesting. It's a unique premise. There's a girl who wants to be an idol. You know, these Japanese pop stars who are idolised, hence the name Idol. So she's entered a competition. You're there, your character, I can't remember his name unfortunately, and you don't realise she's entering a competition. It turns out that the host is some sort of evil demon who then kidnaps the girl and takes her to this other world. You're able to travel to the other world and you rescue her and then fight the evil guy. Basically, that's what's happened. You've also got another friend who is mysteriously not around at the moment, but he says he'll meet you later. He knows all about this other world and in the end comes to help you. And this game, when it was originally released in Japan, was a crossover between Shin Megami Tensei series and Fire Emblem. So your Persona-like characters, which are called Mirages in this game, are all based off Fire Emblem characters, which I'm not very familiar with at first, but it's interesting. I find that this game wasn't marketed with that because how popular Fire Emblem is, but was given its own unique title when released outside of Japan. It's a colourful game, which is really nice. Graphics are well done. The characters and story, as I mentioned previously, aren't quite as engaging as something like Persona 4, at least not yet. Then also the dungeon overworld that I was transported into was rather simplistic and sort of bland looking, which seemed like a bit of a shame. But the game kind of comes to life in its battles, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. And I never thought I'd buy this game, honestly, for the Wii U, because actually I think I said in my previous Wii U video there's only a couple more games I want, and this certainly wasn't one of them at the time. But after having played Persona as much as I have lately, I was convinced to give this one a go. And I must say, I've enjoyed the gameplay so far, and I like the overall presentation and the colours, and it's pretty cool. Move on to the next game now. This one is Deus Ex Human Revolution. Nice game. I think I referred to this on the Tom Matt Attack podcast as being Mankind Divided, which I think is the new one. I was actually talking about this one, of course, for the Wii U. Human Revolution. This is a director's cut. This was released on the Wii U, I think, before the director's cut was released on the other consoles, namely PS3 and Xbox 360. And this took advantage of the gamepad for various things like the map screen and some other interactivity. I've played this game briefly before. I actually own it on PS3, and I've always found it rather intriguing, but it's not immediately an accessible kind of game if you're not familiar with stealth mechanics or never really got the grasp of playing stealth games. But of course you don't have to play it in a stealth way. You can opt for doing more all-out assault, so using your weapons there. But the problem being is, I found in one of the missions you'd run out of ammo very quickly, so you can't just shoot endlessly. It's more of a thinking man's shooter, and a lot of it is emphasis on cover and sneaking around. It's also, in general, it's a very sophisticated type game in the way it's presented, and it reminds me a lot of Metal Gear Solid, both in its gameplay and its presentation. The colours are all very gold and brownish, and It's got a nice aesthetic. I really actually like the way the characters look. They sort of remind me, in a good way, of like Captain Scarlet and things like Thunderbirds and the Jerry Anderson uh, puppet series. That sounds like I'm putting the game down, but they got this sort of stylized look that is really nice, because rather than going for just making them look lifelike as possible, they've gone for this more stylized approach, which I think suits the game really well. Uh, One thing I did find a little bit irritating with the controls was it's not set up like traditional sort of shooter. To crouch, you push in the left thumbstick, I think, and the cover system feels a bit odd. You press the left trigger, you jump into cover, and then you have to decide if you want to move along the cover by holding down the X button, or you want to jump to another cover by tapping the X button. I would often get these two mechanisms confused, meaning that in these moments where I really had to stay out of sight, I kept getting spotted by the enemies. So that proved to be a little bit difficult, I'm afraid. But I can see the appeal of this game, very much so. And it seems like a deep world, and there's a lot of story and interesting things going on with this sort of genetic... Would I say genetically? Mechanically enhanced human beings, which is, the themes of this very strong within Deus Ex. And I did enjoy the original Deus Ex when I played that on PS2. At the time, it was a very groundbreaking game, and this sort of deals with the same ideas as that game does. So, a good game to pick up for the Wii U, I would say. Again, not one I was thinking of picking up, but I felt would be nice to have a game like this on the Wii U. And it's the same with this next game, which I actually bought together with that one for, I think, £18 off eBay. And this is Watch Dogs. So Watch Dogs had been out a while, and there was a big hoo-ha about this at the time when it was first announced, because it was a very, very nice-looking game. Essentially, it's a open-world GTA-style game, but with some unique play mechanics. This hacking element to the game, where you can hack other people's phones to find out information. Also, like Deus Ex, there's an emphasis on stealth in some missions. It's implemented rather well, but there are quite a lot of unique controls within this game, so it can take a little bit getting used to at first. But for me, it does feel rather fresh compared to other open world games. The hacking aspect of it is kind of fun. The controls when you're driving seem good to me. I like the open world, I like the presentation. It's got an overall bright and airy feeling to it in the daytime when you're out driving around, and I like the location that the game is set in. It's very appealing to me. The main character, though, he's a criminal. Something terrible and tragic happens to a member of his family that causes him to go on a bit of a revenge mission. But he isn't immediately the most likable character, but the game does really attempt to create some sort of emotional resonance with the character, and the music is also rather nice in this game, I thought. But he's a difficult character to like, even though he does go out of his way to help people by hacking into their phone and maybe stealing their money first, but then realising they're in some terrible situation and they could be meeting up with someone who is going to assault them. So you try and get to the location and protect the person. You can do missions like that. But overall, the main gist of it is you're trying to track down the people responsible for your niece's murder. But yeah, I like the unique mechanics. The hacking aspect of this game is rather cool. For example, maybe you'll use it when you're trying to get through an area to turn off the lights so you can sneak around a bit easier. You hack into a camera, and then from that camera you can see another room, you can see another camera or a computer, and from there you can hack into that to enable you to switch off the lights, for instance. So yeah, there's some kind of puzzling mechanics involved within that part of the game, and yeah, it's a little difficult to pin down right now because it's doing a lot of different things. But for me, that makes it appealing and quite fresh. But I was chatting to Matt about this earlier, and you'll hear that on the podcast if you tune into the latest episode, Tom Matt Attack. Matt's saying it gets rather stale later on, and it's rinse and repeat type stuff, and it didn't really hold his interest, which is a shame. But I got this at a relatively cheap price, considering we got the two games together, Deus Ex and this, and I'm willing to play. I actually want to play it a bit more. I've played it for about an hour now, and I know that's not a lot of time, but I like it enough to want to go back to it because I do really like the unique aspects and the open world presentation of Watch Dogs. So that's 4 Wii U games that I've picked up. Now, what more Wii games could I want? Well, every time I mention Wii U, I talk about Tank Tank Tank, which is a game I'm still very interested in. I'd like to pick that up sometime. I'm thinking a little bit more now. My Wii U collection is becoming, a little bit bigger than it was, and I feel there's a couple of gaps still in there. I'd like to pick up Hyrule Warriors at the right price. I don't have many Dynasty Warriors type games. Never really been a huge fan of the genre, but I had Dynasty Warriors 2 on the PS2, and I actually quite like that one. I played another on PS3, I can't remember which one it was exactly, but I didn't think that was as interesting. But maybe with the Zelda skin, so to speak, I'll get a bit more enjoyment out of Hyrule Warriors. I'd certainly like to try it, but again, it has to be the right price for me to pick that one up. And then there's Mario Party 10, which I'm not sure if I'll get because I've heard some very negative things about that game. I would like a Mario Party game for the Wii U, but I do have Wii U Party, which is a fun party game and don't necessarily need Mario Party 10, especially if it isn't a very good entry into the series. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've played any of those games and you think they're really worth getting, or maybe I should steer clear of them, and maybe there's something else for the Wii U that you might want to suggest. What I'd like to do maybe is talk about my entire Wii U collection in a video, and that may help you help me find some great new games to add to it. So thank you very much for checking out this latest episode of Parry's Pickups, and until I see you again, game on!